want to welcome everyone to the 2025 Clifford P. Case Professorship in Public Affairs lecture, a conversation with the founders and leaders of the Forward Party. My name is Elizabeth Maddow. I'm the director of the Eagleton Institute of Politics, and I'm honored to moderate this important conversation at this important moment. A signature program of the Eagleton Institute of Politics, the Case Professorship was established in 1980, and it was to honor Senator Case's 34 years of representing New Jersey in the United States Congress, where he was known for consistently putting principles above politics, and he earned the deserved reputation of having a profound sense of integrity. A Republican, Senator Case was known for his willingness to stand up for matters of conscience. He spoke out against Senator McCarthy, he opposed the Vietnam War, and he was a strong supporter of civil rights and the labor movement, while remaining an advocate for small government and fiscal responsibility. Like the Eagleton Institute of Politics, Senator Case believed in politics and saw it as, quote, the job of helping people meet their problems, keeping them from destroying each other, checking their bad instinct, and encouraging their good ones. So here, we agree. The Case Professorship was created to honor the senator's spirit of bipartisanship and his commitment to principle. Given the distinguished careers in public service of our speakers, their unwavering defense of democratic values, and their leadership in reshaping political discourse, I can think of no one better to hold the Case Professorship at this moment in 2025 than all of our guests today. In fact, something I learned, and I think Governor Whitman shared it with our students earlier, it was a summer internship in Washington, D.C. for Senator Case that sparked Governor Christine Todd Whitman's interest in public service and launched maybe an important first step, perhaps, in her political career. So we have Senator Case to thank for that. We also have Senator Case's family to thank for their generosity and their public spiritedness in ensuring that the senator's legacy lives on in this professorship. And so we are very fortunate to have members of Senator Case's family with us tonight, in particular his daughter Ann Holt and his granddaughter Christina. So I want to take a moment and acknowledge them and other family. I think there's a few other family members that are here. So we're thrilled that you're here, and we want to thank you for being here and for keeping his legacy alive here with all of us, with our students, and with the Rutgers community broadly. And in a moment, I'm going to introduce our guests, and we'll have a conversation really on what led them to form the Forward Party, their thoughts on the state of democracy, and the impact they believe that their work might have on preserving our democratic institutions. We'll leave some time at the end for Q&A, so stay tuned for that. So as you can imagine, our panelists have very distinguished careers, very lengthy distinguished careers in public service. And so in the interest of time, I'm going to give you a little snippet for all of them. Thrilled to have everyone here. Want to begin with the Honorable Christine Todd Whitman. Christine Todd Whitman was the 50th governor of the state of New Jersey and served as the first woman governor from 1994 until 2001. She went on to serve in the cabinet of President George W. Bush as administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency from January 2001 until June of 2003. And as governor, certainly Governor Whitman earned praise from both Republicans and Democrats for her commitment to preserve a record amount of New Jersey's land as permanent green space. As EPA administrator, she promoted common sense environmental improvements such as watershed-based water protection policies. Governor Whitman serves as the founding co-chair of the Forward Party. Please join me in welcoming Governor Whitman. The Honorable Dr. Kerry Healey is also joining us. And Dr. Healey's career spans higher education, elected office, foreign and domestic public policy. Dr. Healey served as Massachusetts' 70th lieutenant governor under Governor Mitt Romney and led bipartisan initiatives on healthcare, education, and public safety. From 2013 to 2019, she was served as the first woman president of Babson College, where she expanded global entrepreneurship programs, improved affordability, and access. She currently serves as the co-chair of the Council for Responsible Social Media with former House Leader Dick Gephardt. Certainly a worthwhile initiative. It's a nonpartisan coalition focused on addressing online threats to young adults and democracy broadly. We're thrilled to have Dr. Healey here, and she serves as the executive chair of the Forward Party. And finally, Mr. Andrew Yang. Mr. Yang was a Democratic candidate for president of the United States in 2020 and
successful president.
Announced his run for the presidency under the slogan, "Make America Think Harder," along with his defining policy proposal of universal basic income, which is a supplemental income offered to American adults to prepare them for the economic challenges incurred by artificial intelligence and automation, certainly another timely topic. Prior to suspending his presidential campaign in February 2020, Yang built a strong digital coalition and attracted a base of loyal supporters known as the Yang Gang. We may have some Yang Gang folks here tonight. In 2021, Mr. Yang changed his voter registration from Democrat to Independent, and in July of 2022, alongside former Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, helped to form this new political party, the Forward Party. So he serves as the founding co-chair of the Forward Party, so please join me in welcoming Mr. Yang. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being here. I want to start asking you to reflect for a moment on the state of American politics today. And that can offer us a nice, strong foundation for discussing how the Forward Party might meet this moment, might meet some of the challenges we're facing. For a variety of reasons, it seems that American politics is at an important, even a critical moment. As of today, the federal government has been shut down 16 days, and there doesn't seem to be much of an end in sight, with now thousands of federal workers being laid off from their jobs. There have been frequent conversations recently about the health of enduring democratic institutions, such as separation of powers, federalism, freedom of the press. In recent weeks, months, we've seen the National Guard being sent into cities. Cities such as Los Angeles and Chicago are becoming flashpoints. In recent years, in recent months, and now even in recent weeks, we've seen violence perpetrated against people from both sides of the political aisle because of their ideas, and most recently even on a college campus. And then certainly this violence seems to be an extension of just toxicity in general when it comes to political discourse, whether it's conversations in person or online. I was struck, I don't know if anyone is a CBS Sunday Morning fan, I am, but this past weekend, former Justice Anthony Kennedy was on talking about his new book, Life, Law, and Liberty. And he was asked, why he wrote the book and his feelings about democracy. And he stated, "Democracy presumes an open, rational, thoughtful, decent discussion where you respect the dignity of the person with whom you disagree. And if it doesn't have that, then democracy as we know it, is in danger." So I'd like to start with Governor Whitman. If you could just reflect on where we are right now in American politics and the need for meaningful change.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you all and thank to the Case family for doing this, because it's a wonderful opportunity for the community and the students to hear a variety of people, which is great, and hear a variety of ideas. Let me just ask a quick question. Who of you here thinks government is working for you at the moment? Okay, thundering silence with no hands. So that's really where we are. I mean, our democracy, frankly, is hanging on by a thread. We survived the last few years because the courts hung in there. I'm not so sure we can't rely on them anymore. We can rely on the lower courts. They seem to be still holding in, but the Supreme Court is now, I think we can all say, has become overly politicized, let me put it that way. And that's a real danger. So to me, I have a passion for history. I grew up in politics and policy, and I care about policy, but government has not been working for us for so long, for decades now, that people are frustrated and angry, and that's why we got who we got in office, because Congress hadn't been solving problems, because the two parties had no interest in solving problems. They don't want to, because that would mean that they wouldn't have something to excite their base by and with. And so it's incumbent on us, those of us who care about the future of our democracy, to reinforce respect for the Constitution and for the respect for the rule of law, and to create that space where we can come together and have a discussion without yelling at one another, and to remind ourselves that because somebody has a different opinion doesn't make them your enemy. They just have a different opinion. And we have to learn to listen to those people, say, okay, why? If you believe this and I believe that, why are you here? Just let me know, and let's see if we can't work out where we need to go. And we can do that as a country. We've done it before. We can do it, but it's right now, more than ever, it's going to take all of us who really care about it to come together and to work to ensure that we allow that to continue, allow our democracy to continue. And that's what Forward is all about. And I won't go on so that others have. Dr. Healey?
Thank you, and I agree with all of that. And I also agree that I would like to very much thank the Case family for bringing us all together and enabling these kind of conversations to continue. And I want to thank Rutgers as well for doing that. It's always been a great place for me to visit and engage in discussions in politics, so thank you. Every system creates an outcome which is perfectly aligned with how it's designed. And you can't change that outcome by tinkering on a little part of a system and expecting to have big change. And so right now, our system, this two-party democracy that we have, is designed to draw people to the furthest extremes and to exclude as many voters from the process as possible through closed primaries that attract only the fewest number and the most extreme and dedicated members of those parties to come out on both the left and the right. And then when you come to the general election, 80% of our states are one-party states. The outcome is foreseen and done before you even started. So now you have 10% of the voters on either side selecting the inevitable candidate who is going to represent that state in whatever office you're determining. And so right now in the US, 80% of all of us live in that situation. And either it's comfortable because you agree with that party, or it's not comfortable. But the likelihood is that maybe only 25% of the people in that environment actually fully agree with the kind of representation that they've had. And over time, the rhetoric becomes more strident because the system is actually designed to deliver that, to push people apart. And both parties are rewarded by the more conflict, the more divisiveness, and they will only focus on issues that divide us. They will never talk about those issues that we could all come together around. So for example, believe it or not, over 80% of the people in the US would really like to see something done about the negative impacts of the internet and social media on society, especially on young people in society. And yet, which of our politicians is championing, this particular cause? You don't hear about it. And national service, voluntary national service, over 60, maybe 70% of the people in America would like that. But you're not going to talk about how that might be used to bring the country together, to reweave the fabric of society. There are any number of things that are positive, that could be spoken about, that could unite us and rebuild those bridges, but you're not going to hear from them. You're not going to hear about it as long as there are only two parties who are talking to you. And so in the past, I personally would have wanted a third party because I was one of those people who was stuck in between. I had more progressive social ideas, but at the same time, I was more conservative economically and maybe in terms of foreign policy. So I always sort of had one foot in both camps to some degree, but I fit a little bit more in the Republican camp, and so I stayed there happily for 43 years. But I saw a fellow traveler when I was there in Governor Whitman, and we would from time to time, after you wrote your book, It's My Party Too, which did not actually turn out to be the case, but it was aspirational. We're all optimists. We'll talk about that later, so that's part of it. But I think at this moment, I am involved in a third-party movement not because it will give me a home, and it'll make a place for people like me and Governor Whitman, but because it's necessary to preserve our democracy and because our two-party system is broken. And we can't just tweak it on the sides and maybe have some open primaries and maybe do ranked choice voting and whatever. We need to do all those things, but it's not going to be enough. We need to create this third space for independents who are now almost 50% of all registered voters, and in some states like mine in Massachusetts are actually 62% of the voters. We need a voice, and so that's what has made me feel committed to this process of creating a principles-driven party, which does not talk about divisive social issues. It talks about supporting the Constitution, rule of law, collaborating across the aisle in the best interests of the voters. It talks about human dignity. And those are the things that we believe in and that we believe we can gather any number of Americans, hopefully more than half of the Americans, around so that we can reclaim our democracy.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you.
You could tell she was a teacher.
Yeah.
Mr. Yang, would you like to add anything?
Oh, sure. It's a privilege to be working with both Governor Whitman and Lieutenant Governor Healey. And thank you, Ann and Christine, and your family for having us here. These are bleak times in the United States. Shutdown aside, and I do want to talk about the shutdown a little bit. I mean, Chuck Schumer, I'm acquainted with, was faced with a very similar situation in March. And he said, you know what? I want the government to keep going. I don't think these guys are going to play it straight if we let them shut it down. So let's let it continue. And he got pilloried by his party. I don't know if you saw that. So he, quote unquote, learned his lesson. And then here we are 6 some odd months later, and he got the message. He said, okay, I'm a fighter. And in this case, fighting means we're going to shut the government down. And I was terrified when the shutdown began, because when it began, I thought it's going to go on for a long time. Like, you can't see either side. After you pull that lever and you're the Democrats, you can't just come back and be like, hey, we're back 3 days later. Just kidding. Like they gave into their bases exhortations to show fight. And it's going to end up hurting the American people. And so that makes me very sad. I do want to say that the people who uplift me are folks like Guy Citron and Jamar running for office. So political candidates, anyone who's presently running for office, go ahead and stand up, because I know there are at least 2 of you here. 3 of you, yeah, there we go. So please do grab them, because anyone who's running is running, I'm sure, for the right reasons, especially in this time in American life. I ran for president because I was concerned about AI eating jobs, which, by the way, people come up to me every day and like, oh, you called it. And I was like, yeah, you should have freaking voted for me. I wouldn't have a chance. But when I came off the trail in 2020, I felt more despondent than ever about the direction of American politics. And I sat down and dug into the numbers and concluded that the two-party system was set up, as Kerry was saying, to incite conflict and strife and polarization, and not to actually bring us together or solve these problems. And the message I'd really love for you all to internalize is that, let's say we're going to get out of this mess. Process of elimination. It's either going to be from the Democratic Party, and I do not think that's happening, just to give it away. I can go into any number of reasons. One is that at this point, it'd be very, very difficult for the Democrats to win a majority of the US Senate, which means legislating is going to be very hard unless you somehow get the Kentuckians, the Kansans, the Nebraskans, and the Utahns, to break ranks and join you, which I don't see a path to that. Come the Republican Party, and Governor Whitman said if she wrote her book today, instead of "It's My Party Too," the title would be "No, It's Not." And so then, where does that leave you? it leaves you with the fact that a critical mass of independent, positive, patriotic, public-spirited Americans are going to raise their hands and say, look, this system is not set up for success, and we need to push it into the 21st century. My joke is that the worst number of parties you can have is 1. The second worst is 2. The third worst would be 3, but I dare say that 3 would be a dramatic improvement over what we currently have. And so concluding this in 2020, and I'm so indebted to the people who supported my presidential campaign, one thing that has always irked me is when someone runs for president and then they lose and you never hear from them again. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, if you were trying to help, then like, where the hell did you go? So, so in my case, I was like, look, ran for president, did not win. And by the way, like, it's not like I'm not particularly upset about it in the sense that, like, it's like, oh, I'm not president. Like, it's not like that kind of thing. But I thought, okay, like, I owe my supporters and my country an honest answer as to our path out of this mess. And I'm so thrilled that when Forward started out, that we ended up making common cause with folks like Governor Whitman and Kerry, Healey, and the hundreds of thousands of people who've joined Forward, including some of the young people who are here today, like Nate, who in some cases traveled to try and table and like give people a chance to get activated and galvanized. So it's an awesome movement because there is no reason for any of us to do it except we think it's the right thing to do. And I hope you get that spirit from Christy and Kerry and myself.
So let's start to talk about the aims of the Forward Party. The motto is not left, not right, but forward. So you started to touch, Dr. Healey, on the aims, the goals. Maybe if you could give us some more on what are the goals, and then how are you going about achieving these goals? How are you approaching it?
Yeah, so we both have to run a marathon and do a sprint at the same time. So it's and we constantly are struggling with balancing those goals and what we need to do on a very small budget, I might add. So if anyone would like to write us a big check, great, please do. But what we are trying to do is to create a movement and a grassroots movement, and that has to start at the city and town level. We have a lot to offer mayors and city councilors and people on school committees, because what we say to them is we don't have a party platform or an ideology that we have to impose on you. What we're asking of you is that you serve your citizens as best you can. And so that means that each person in their own town will have different priorities. And so we're excited about enabling, especially local officials, to be really responsive to their voters and their community's needs. And so we're not going to be dictating those. And so we're working right now. We have 52 elected officials. Some are Forward Democrats, some are Forward Republicans, Forward Independents. And in the 4 states where we're already on the ballot, we have Forwardists. We had real Forward Party members who are running as Forward Party members. In 5 other states, we have partial ballot access, and so we're expecting to expand that soon. And by 2028, we're aiming for as many as we can get, so hopefully closer to 50. But the initial, the more approximate goals are really quite ambitious, and we think might help save democracy. So what we're trying to do in this upcoming election cycle in 2026 is to recruit and support a slate of congressional candidates who could go to Congress as independents. So we would expect that some of them would be running as independents, some would be running as Forwardists, that they would come together as a coalition of independent-minded congresspeople who could stand up to both parties. And we would need to have a fulcrum large enough to be able to swing the vote on who is elected as Speaker of the House and to change the rules, which are set every 2 years in order to enable their participation. And we have to have people who have steel in their spines. We have to have people who are willing to resist the temptation to caucus on one side or the other so they get a better office, or they get more funding from various donors, or they have to be able to literally stand there and probably in a bare office until they reclaim democracy. And we can do it.
As the math guy, how many U.S. senators would you need to break the logjam right now in the middle? Maybe 3. You know, I mean, we're not trying to win 51 Senate races. We're trying to get 3 in there, and 1 or 2 of them might already be there, and they just need a home. By the way, have we had those conversations? Yes, we have. In the House, it might be 6. So if someone says, oh, hey, like I kind of like the idea of a third party or a multi-party system, but how are you going to do it? 3 Senate races, 6 members of Congress, and the government would be open right now. Because if you have that fulcrum, then neither party can just cast blame on the other, because there are some folks in the middle saying, we're open for business. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do in immigration? What do you want to do on social media? And then you can imagine our country actually taking a very, very different direction in terms of tackling these issues. Because right now, and this is like the thing that should make us all angry, is that right now, our destiny, our families' futures are essentially irrelevant to the folks in office right now because, and you're seeing it with the shutdown. Like, there's no one who can argue that this shutdown is good for the American people. This shutdown is going to cost us, I think it's like, it cost the economy like 100 million a day plus, something along those lines. I mean, we're like teetering at the edge right now. What happens to us is now tertiary at best. In terms of our political class and the decisions they make. Their decisions are being driven by these 10% on the side, by their own political interests. And it should be enough to activate millions of us to say, look, we deserve better than this, because we genuinely do. And one of the easy aphorisms like, oh, these people are all crooks, they're all corrupt, et cetera, et cetera. Like, the worst part is that some of them are actually good people. Like, it's just that they're stuck in a system that will cast them out if they show character and do the right thing.
And I think it's also important to remember that this cycle is important too. And our focus on state and local, these are the people who make the decisions that most immediately and directly affect your life. But they're also making decisions. They're the people that can do redistricting and can set up committees that do it right. These are the people who can make those kinds of changes that can really affect the outcome of the next set of congressional
Amen.
Elections.
Yeah.
So it's really important, we believe it's really important to start right now, and we already have with the 53 or 52, 53 we already have in office. Well, one's a US Senator and one's a congressperson. The rest are down at the local level. They're mayors, they're council members, they're, my favorite, which I will always go into, is the woman who beat a Moms for Liberty for the school board in South Carolina. You know, I mean, that's an important position these days. So is the library commission, the school board. All those things really, really impact. And that's why we believe that it's so important to give these people a home, but give them the structure behind them so that they can be free. And when we say we're not a platform, we have principles. And our principles, these members sign a pledge that says it sounds stupid to have to say this, but they'll agree to uphold the Constitution, shocking thought, uphold the rule of law, work with anyone to solve controversial issues or to solve issues in general, create a safe place to discuss those issues, work to ensure that anyone who has the legal right to vote gets to vote, and then base those on the principles of decency, diversity, and democracy. And then it should be up. It should be up to the candidates and to the states to say what's important to our constituents, what's important in our state, not having a political party in Washington saying this is what you have to think. And that's what they do, as has been said here. If you try to stand up to the parties, that's it. And they'll run somebody against you. They'll take you. It was back in 1997, after I won re-elect, I was asked to think about running for the US Senate, and I went down and talked to the Senatorial Campaign Committee, and back then, they looked me in the eye and said, if you say one word about campaign finance reform, that's it. You won't hear a thing from us. It's real what they do to the members. It's real when they say they're going to run somebody against them or they're going to make sure they don't get any donations. Somebody has to have their back. As Andrew says, there are good people in office. They just can't do it alone. And that's what Forward is here to provide.
And the nature of the support, I know you spoke to some of our students earlier. Maybe if you can give our audience a sense of what kind of support, having your back, what does it mean to have a candidate's back?
So those of you who haven't run for office probably wouldn't know this, but one of the most important things that parties do for candidates is they give them infrastructure. You know, they say, oh, who are the leading consultants in my party? How can I get in touch with them? Who could actually, you know, who knows how to file all of these important papers that I need to file? How do I get a bank account? Who are my donors? Where do I go knock on doors? Where's the map of all the people who I need to know? And all the general advice and support that people in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party take for granted. When independent candidates get out there, they have nothing. They don't know where to go. They don't know who to talk to. They don't have donors. They don't have consultants. They're lost. And they often lose as a result of that. And so we're trying to create a replica, if you will, for independent candidates of the campaign in a box that is handed to Democrats and Republicans when they decide to run. And it's complicated because I can tell you that when we go to a good fundraiser or we go to someone who's good at even tech, you know, for campaigns, they'll say, if I work for you, it's the end of my career. Is this actually going to continue? You know, will this party succeed? Because I'm burning the bridges that are my career lifeline, because you will be cut off by the party that they've been working for. So it's a big gamble for these individuals, and we're building that reservoir of talent right now. And if there are young people who want to come in and be trained and provide that kind of talent for brave candidates who are coming forward, we need you.
So as we know, there have been attempts throughout American history to create a vibrant third party. Often those efforts are resisted, and I think you've alluded to that already. There's resistance to disruption. Some would argue there are structural challenges in the way the American system is set up. So help us understand that, or when that argument or that criticism is offered, that it's just baked in. We're meant to be a two-party system in the United States.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Chilling. So there's not a word in the Constitution about Democrats, Republicans, or two parties generally. George Washington warned about factions on his way out. James Madison said you need shifting coalitions. John Adams said two parties would be a great evil across the land. So it's not like the founding fathers were like, you know what would work great? The two-party system. And the two parties then kind of, came into being over the ensuing decades, but then they've shifted multiple times where, you had the Whigs. I mean, who here's a Whig? And then the Republicans came into effect, in the 19th century. And if anything, we're overdue for political realignment now. Like, we've been writing this particular version for far, far too long. And there needs to be some modernization effort, because at this point, you just look at any polling, not only are about 50% of Americans self-identified independents, including 2/3 of young people, because you definitely have wised up to the fact that these two parties, aren't with it. But then 60 to 70% say the current structures are not working. They're losing faith in democratic institutions. Like, anything you look at, like, it's common sense. And so then it boils down to, okay, let's say I'm with it. How do we actually do it in real life? And this, I will say, is something of a specialty of mine, because I'm a numbers guy. So what you do is you look at the 500,000 races around the country, and it turns out that 70% of them or so are uncontested or uncompetitive. And tens of thousands of these positions are technically nonpartisan, including many, many thousands of mayors, city council positions, school board positions, county executive. So we've had Mayor of Fort Collins, Colorado, just raise her hand and say, hey, I'm now a forwardist. She was a Democrat. And then her constituents asked her, what does that mean? And then she said, just means I listen to you and no one else. And then they said, that sounds pretty good. And she did that in part because she was being asked to essentially like explain or apologize a bunch of things that she's like, had nothing to do with me. Like I'm trying to, fill the potholes and get the budget in line. Like I had nothing to do with whatever's going on at the state capitol or nationwide. And 2 of the top 40 mayors in the United States are going to be joining forward in the next number of weeks. Now, you're not going to see a single headline about that because it's not like the Washington Post interest to be like, someone should really look at this, new movement. Like that, unfortunately, everyone in the media has like essentially picked a team. And the big picture team that they're on is the current political system. They're not welcoming of any kind of insurgents. But we're at 52 now. As the numbers guy, I can see very clearly a path to 500, 2,500 local officials just through enlistment, just calling them and saying, hey, are you tired of being team blue or team red? And if you go around the country, the polarization has made it so that a lot of them feel unwelcome in their own communities by a significant number of people. So if you say, think about it, if you were one of these office holders, like would you consider either going independent or joining forward? No one knows what the heck forward means. So they don't know to hate it yet. You know what I mean? They definitely, some of them know to hate like anyway. So you can see us getting to 500, 1,500, 2,500. You can see us filling like an auditorium, then an arena. And then what will people say? It's like, oh, it's impossible to have a new political party in the United States of America. I would actually reverse it and say it is impossible that the 2-party system can keep on creaking along indefinitely. And really the question is what comes up to replace it? Is it going to be something positive and well-intended like Forward? Or is it going to be something rancid and malevolent? And by the way, I would give those very even odds. You know what I mean? And so it's up to us to try and provide the positive version as quickly as we can.
I think one reason why people have had such doubt about whether or not a third-party movement could get off the ground is that the examples that they think of might be Ross Perot's campaign, or they might think of Michael Bloomberg and his decision ultimately not to run for president because he decided it was impossible for an independent to win. And the reason why we're starting at the grassroots is because that's why those movements went nowhere. They were self-funded movements about one person, not about a set of principles or ideas. And so when that person went away, so did the movement. And there was nothing to support them. And if they had started their campaigns after there had been a grassroots movement to go in every community, building that reputation of the party that they were representing, rather than just their own identity, then it would have been different. And so I don't think we've seen at all what we're building here today. We've seen the opposite of it, actually. We've just seen individuals putting themselves forward saying, follow me. And that's the opposite. All of us right now, we're not running for office. This isn't about us.
Yet.
No, yet. No, not, well, okay.
Not yet.
Let me speak for us.
Yes,
we're going to speak for us.
We'll speak for
we'll
the two
speak
of
for
us.
us. But by and large, everyone is in this movement for the right purpose. It's not about an individual. It really is genuinely about a social movement.
Well, and I will also say, if Andrew wants to run again, he's got to run with us. I mean, you've got to make this
Don,
succeed so you could run, because the Democrats aren't going to touch you again.
Don,
And
no
you're not a
problem.
Republican. It's got to be an independent movement that allows you to really run.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, if I were to run, it would be to build this new pathway. So just speaking very frankly, it's like, have I been recruited even now avidly by the 2 existing parties? Sure. And it's like, guys, like, I wouldn't do it. I just don't see it. Yeah, I mean, I'm friends with a lot of people who are going to be running in this Democratic primary, and I think very highly of some of them. But it's like the big picture, and it makes me deeply sad. Like I was saying to a student today at lunch, the Democrats should never have lost to Trump the first time. They should never have lost to Trump the second time. It's like signal failures. But what's happened was that the Democratic Party has become the de facto party of the institutionalists in a time when institutional mistrust is just rising and rising. And it's something that Trump took advantage of. And so the people who are running for president as Democrats in 2028, it's like, guys, you guys are like presiding over like a shrinking island in a sea of mistrust. Like, it makes me very, very sad. Like the Democratic Party had a couple of opportunities to demonstrate that it was worthy of that trust, and it failed us. It failed us. Like in 2024, you know who I was with? I was with a guy named Dean Phillips, who was running against Joe Biden, being like, hey guys, running an 81-year-old unpopular incumbent is a terrible idea. He's a third-term member of Congress, vice chair of the Democratic Party, and they ended his career because he did the right thing. I'm still angry about it. I was up in New Hampshire with Dean being like, your next president, Dean Phillips, yay! It's like, and like that they couldn't bear to have the truth like presented to them, and so they cast Dean out. And then what happened 5 months later? They were like, oh shoot, it shouldn't be Joe. It's like, oh no, and then no one went to Dean and were like, hey man, sorry, like here's your career back, here's your reputation back. He had the people he was sitting next to in Congress lambaste him as a narcissist and malignant and all this stuff that was the opposite of the truth. So like they failed us. Like if Joe Biden had just stepped aside or they'd had a primary forced, you would have had Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, Josh Shapiro, like the entire panoply of the next generation of Democrats, some of whom I like a great deal and are very formidable. And then, in my opinion, the Democrats probably win last year because they would have proven that they actually believed in something called democracy. But they failed us. They didn't have a primary. They anointed Kamala again without a primary. And here we are. So as you can tell, I'm a little bit animated about it. But we should be angry. And by the way, even now, the DNC cannot say the words, should have had a primary for Joe Biden. Can't freaking do it. Like, they'll say 10 other things, but they can't accept their own lack of character.
No, they both failed us. I mean, both parties are failing
Oh yeah,
us.
I don't
what
mean,
we're
to,
going through
mean
now.
to make it seem like the Democrats are the cause of all the problems. Because certainly
No,
the Republicans
we know
have,
that.
like,
I mean,
they've had some stuff.
We know they're not.
Yes,
But I mean,
no.
if we look at what's happening today, the atmosphere, the toxic atmosphere is being encouraged in the ways that we've never seen it before. And it is going to take a lot to try to calm it down. And it's going to take people standing up and saying this is just not what's acceptable. And as I said in the students this afternoon, we should all take a lesson from what happened with Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, they knock him off the air, people go berserk, and they put him back on the air. So don't think for a minute that people standing up and sending a message doesn't have an impact. It does. We're the only people. I mean, this is our democracy. It's up to us to make it right. And that's what we're trying to do, to make it right, because the Democratic Party failed when it had the opportunity, and it gave us this madman that we've got now again. And I wonder about the American people. Really, we did this to ourselves again. And the Republican Party has become a cult. There is no Republican Party, really. It's a cult of Trump. And God bless people who want to believe in him, and it's okay. But it's not okay. But I have to understand why. That's the question I have to ask them. But right now, we cannot allow this poison to continue to spread throughout our system. And again, the best way to do it is to start at that local level where people can know one another. And they know their neighbor, and they know who's running for mayor. They've seen them around town. They know who's on the council. That's where you start. That's where you start having the conversations that say, yeah, we can do this. We can talk about issues where we might not disagree without getting disagreeable. It happens there. And that helps set the stage to make it possible to happen at the federal level as well, which we have got to hope it happens sooner rather than later.
3 senators, 6 members of Congress.
So I think we've heard here, and we hear every day amongst our friends on television and elsewhere about this disappointment. And I think a lot of people feel deeply discouraged about the future of democracy, about the future of perhaps their own economics, their own jobs and their own family. And what we have found and what we propose is that the only way to feel empowered and optimistic about the future is to do something.
Yeah.
Is to take action and to be optimistic. We view this as an act of optimism, right? There is a way forward. No pun intended. There is a way forward, and we can all be part of that. That's what social movements are about. And so, I urge you all not to walk away from this feeling despondent or feeling disempowered. I want you to feel that there is something you can do, that you should look for opportunities in your own community, start at the grassroots level, encourage people to run, and help those who have the courage to run.
Yeah, we have 3 candidates in the room.
And you will feel much more optimistic about the future of the country if you dig in and do the work. Yeah.
And everybody go to the No Kings rally this Saturday to show Speaker Johnson that No Kings rallies people are not anti-American Hamas supporters. I mean, that was the most ridiculous thing that he said about the people who were going to go to the No Kings rally. I went to the first one when it was the big one, and it was Sisters of the Charity that were all over there. I mean, come on, you really want to say they're anti-American Hamas supporters? But the important thing is that when you have rallies of that size that are peaceful, when people are there for positive reasons, as they all were, standing in the pouring rain on that particular day, it sends a huge message to other people that says we can have positive movement. We can do this, and people are doing it, and there's strength in numbers. And the more numbers we get out there, the better off we are.
So I want to offer a chance for questions. I want to just take a second, though, and maybe Mr. Yang in particular, students. We have some students here. I know there's some people, some students in the lobby. So
Yes.
what can students do if they're interested?
So we now have dozens of college chapters around the country, but not yet at Rutgers, and we'd love for that to change. So if you would like to help kick off the chapter here on campus, just email mario@forwardparty.com or talk to, so I can see Nate, so you can just, go ahead and stand up, Nate. Look at Nate. Talk to Nate. Well, let's make it happen here on Rutgers campus. I will not leave campus tonight until there is a chapter.
And there are none on no Big Ten campuses have one, correct? So we could be the
you'd be the
first in the Big
first.
Ten if we have.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
go.
So I want to make sure we have a little bit of time left for if anyone in the audience has a question. I would ask if you could raise your hand. We have folks from the Eagleton Institute on each side. They will come to you. They'll ask you to come to the end of the aisle. And I would ask you to be brief. Give us your name. If you're a student, we'd love to know your major. And we'll see how much time we have to get to any. So Kiana, am I going to you? I'll let you. It's easier for, I can't quite see. Okay. Might be easier if you come out. Okay.
Hello, my name is Christopher. I'm a PhD candidate here in the Political Science Department and an Eagleton Fellow as well. I had a question regarding the polarizations that you guys, polarization that you identified towards the beginning of the reception. Particularly, what are your thoughts on big money donors and their effects on this polarization as well? Particularly, like we talked about AI, but some of the tech oligarchs that we see right now within the federal government, like Peter Thiel, formerly Elon Musk. Like, what are your thoughts about how big money has polluted?
I don't think it's formerly Elon. I think Elon's still there. So the thing that springs to mind for me, congrats on being a fellow and a PhD candidate. It's social media, really. And social media and big money have now merged and combined forces because they're some of the same humans. But social media is the main cause of our polarization, in my opinion. And if you think about the last time you felt assaulted or attacked, it probably came from your device. It was probably not that a real life human being came in your face and started yelling at you. That probably didn't happen. But you might witness someone yelling at someone, hopefully not at you. I mean, it's sort of difficult. That'd be kind of a strange app, someone yelling at you. But our phones have become these sources of negative emotion and anxiety, and there are billion and trillion dollar companies now profiting from that. And then there are individuals sitting astride those companies that, by the way, are also hoovering up our data and then spinning up AI models that are also worth hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars. And they're going to end up, replacing many of our workers. So these things are all tied together. And unfortunately now, certainly right now, those tech platforms and their leaders are aligned with Trump and the Republican Party. And it's going to make it much more difficult to get out of it. 85% of Americans want to get money out of politics. And that goes across party lines. Like when I sat with conservative farmers in Iowa, they hated money in politics. They hated, big pharma companies. There are ways that we can bring Americans together. By the way, which is why this forward movement is so vital, because there are folks who would come together around a lot of these issues if it was free of the two-party system.
I agree entirely that this has been amplified and directed. Our polarization has been amplified and directed by social media, but also by foreign interference. So there are algorithms that feed on conflict and amplify conflict because it creates engagement, it creates attention, and that's profitable, to your point. But there are also foreign actors who delight in amplifying the most divisive voices in America and creating bots and other approaches to making sure that the most hateful messages get out. And so I don't really buy that we are the America that we see reflected in our phones, reflected in our media right now. I believe that there are several things going on. Some of it is simply a corporate disinterest in the best interest of humanity. And the other part is genuinely malevolent interference by our geopolitical opponents. And it's real, and it's serious, and it is the modern equivalent of Voice of America, right? Or other propaganda, which doesn't exist here anymore. So we're not propagandizing other people. But trust me, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran are propagandizing us and making sure that we have the kind of social disarray and conflict that we're experiencing right now. Nothing would make them happier than to see the domestic political situation that we have today. And so we need to make sure that we disengage, and that we also start passing laws that help these companies understand that they are actually interfering with national security.
Any other questions? Nancy, or is there someone on this side? I'm not sure. It's hard to see up here, so I'll let you choose, Nancy.
Hi, my name is George. I'm a sophomore studying history and political science. So recently, Marjorie Taylor Greene has said on multiple occasions that our country would be better if we split completely into two separate political parties and separate our country. Do you think that as the American people, it's something we should either fear or possibly consider?
Certainly not consider, because if you think about that practically, like it makes zero sense, because even if you were to take the reddest area, like it'd be, like 30% or so Democrats. So you'd literally have to try and have people all relocate. Like the whole thing is absurd in terms of practice. But should we be concerned about conflict? Unfortunately, yes. And I'm a numbers guy. We can all sense that political violence has become more and more ongoing and frequent. And that's on trend. Let's just say that they're not anomalies. I mean, like the level of mistrust, and to Kerry's point, I'm sure that some of it is incited by foreign actors. And so could you see some secessionist movements in various parts of the country? I think you could, and you probably will. Is that something that I think is realistic? I do not. And even the conflict is unlikely to get to a point where there's like a state militia or something along those lines. Like that we're, it's not Revolutionary era anymore. It's like, it's not muskets. So it doesn't make it, like that stuff's not happening. But you're going to see some, unfortunately, radicalized actors with acts of violence and probably terrorism.
Just remember, South Jersey wants to secede from North Jersey. We've had that problem right along. But more seriously, and what concerns me is the deployment of National Guard and being into our cities and militarizing our cities. I'm a conspiracy theorist here on this. I believe the president wants to see some major conflict break out because of overreaction, and then it will give him the excuse he needs to send the military, not just the National Guard, the military in. He can evoke the Insurrection Act, and that's what he's looking for. And that to me is a really terrifying thought. But I'm afraid, I think it's a real possibility out there.
And I'd just like to say real quickly, though, also the fact that we don't hear about the people in the middle, we don't hear about this invisible millions in the middle, is why Marjorie Taylor Greene can get away with saying things like, we're so divided, we have to break into blue and red. We're not blue and red. We are at least half something else. And so we need to recognize that and be able to shine a light on it. But honestly, if there isn't a word for something, if it can't make itself visible, then it's really hard to talk about it. And so we're trying to make that middle, those independents, visible. We're trying to give them a platform, and we're trying to make sure that they can't be ignored, so that ridiculous suggestions like dividing the country just don't even seem reasonable.
Anything on this side? Maybe up here, Kieran? Come on, right up there. Okay, that's okay. Yeah, and if you could stand up. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kieran. I am a graduate student in the Masters of Accounting and Taxation program at Rutgers Business School. Thank you all for being here. So I just want to make a note about the book forward that obviously you, Mr. Yang, wrote. In page, sorry, 1 second. On page 194, you talk about this idea of constructive institutionalism, the idea of that, like, the house is on fire, but the dog is saying everything's all right. Yeah, and so I guess my question is, one of your chief policies being UBI, do you think that that's sort of some of the same constructive institutionalism in that AI is taking all our jobs, but hey, you get $1,000 every month just to like assuage some of that like economic concern?
I actually think it's the reverse of that. And I remember page 194 well. It's like my favorite page. Because one of my frustrations with a lot of policy is that some of it would be extraordinarily difficult to implement. And when I was running for president, people would say to me, it's like, one, can we afford that? Two, how does that happen? And then months later during COVID, we ended up sending out stimulus checks of varying amounts to tens of millions of Americans. So the constructive institutionalist argument is like, oh, we're going to do this, that, that. But then in reality, like those things aren't going to happen, and then everyone just goes home and feels better, even though the reality will continue to degrade. And I thought universal basic income was the opposite of that, where this is like, look, this is something we can actually do that will improve your life in real life, and you'll have it, and then you'll be able to do what you think is best with it. That it isn't the government trying to determine, the best use of resources for you. It would be that capitalism would function better if people had money, was one of my arguments. This is like capitalism where income doesn't start at zero. GDP now in the United States is 84,000 a person. AI is going to push that up. So at that point, it might be actually the best move to try and set a floor, a foundation for Americans, so that as people find themselves in increasing distress, they stay rational and positive and reasonable and community oriented, as opposed to becoming radicalized and go down some rabbit hole and then blame some group. So I actually saw it as the opposite of what I say in my book is like, look, we have a lot of folks who are astride institutions who then will like give you a placating message, and you'll be like, okay, that person's got it under control, and then they don't really. And one of the stories I tell about why I decided to run for president was that I met several of the last presidents and was not like, okay, these guys have it. It was more like, okay, like, maybe we should, maybe we should be, seeking some bigger swings and measures, because when I saw some of these political figures, they seemed like they were stuck as stage actors in a play. And I thought, wow, like I don't think they're actually going to be able to address some of the technological change that I saw coming down the pike.
I think we have time for one last question, Nancy, maybe wherever you can see better than I can from here. Stand up and yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. I graduated from the Camden campus. Governor Whitman, we're not seceding. Don't worry. So during the first Trump term, I didn't think much of Pence. I have family in Indiana. I know he wasn't a very good governor, but I always knew that he was better than Trump. With Vance, I can't tell. 10 years ago, he called Trump Hitler. Today, he probably would say he meant it as a compliment. What do you think? Do you think that if we had a Vance presidency, which I think it's going to happen at some point, I don't know how, but it'll happen. Do you think we'd be better off or worse off?
Well, he does not. I mean, this really is right now. We're in a situation where it is a cult of Trump. And nobody else commands that same kind of loyalty or will command that same kind of loyalty from the MAGA crowd. It just won't happen. It doesn't mean that J.D. Vance is going to be good because and I don't know where he is, frankly. I find it very hard, unless someone explains to me why they were here at one point and all of a sudden they're over here, why that happened, I don't trust you anymore. I mean, I can't know who you are because that just doesn't work for me. And we see a little bit of that here in New Jersey, but I won't get into that in our gubernatorial. But anyway, it's one of those things that I do think it would be, whoever it is going to be, it won't be as bad. It won't be as bad because they won't command the same kind of loyalty. And what we can only do is hope that they appoint good people to the offices, at least have some qualifications. It would be nice, besides being a Fox News television host. And things would get better. They won't be great, but hopefully the Democrats will have somebody, or we will have somebody. There'll be a candidate on the other side, or the three sides, who is somebody who really will represent us as the American people. And that's entirely possible. That's entirely possible, but I'm afraid I don't think Donald Trump's going to go in 3 years, or he's certainly not going to go quietly, and he's going to do whatever he can to disrupt the 2026 election. I co-chair a group called States United Democracy Center, and we've been working really hard legally with the various states and their attorneys general and their secretaries of state of how to protect the vote in 2026, because that's going to be a real challenge. We know it, we see it happening. They're laying the groundwork for it, and we're going to have to be there to try to stop it. And that's where our candidates have to come out too, to speak to it, to talk to it, and let people know what's at stake here.
Yeah. I would argue that all the presidents in recent memory have gathered too much power around themselves, and Congress has allowed them to do that. And so what we need is that handful of independent-minded Congresspeople who demand that the Constitution be obeyed and that they take back the power that is rightful for that branch of government. And I believe we can do it. We can do it with fewer than a dozen people out of 535. And so I believe we can do that. I believe we can make that difference, and I believe that Congress can save the country. So we need to work on it, and I invite you all to join us in that project.
And on that, yes.
Wow.
On that, say one more thing, sure.
I want to just say one last thing. I urge all of you. In November, Ken Burns' latest series is going to come out on the American Revolution. And it's going to remind us that was bloody. That was a brutal, brutal conflict. Bad things happened. But it's also going to remind us of what they were fighting for, how our founding fathers came to their decisions, and what a beautiful thing they put together, and how great this country is, and why it's worth fighting for. So watch for it. They're going to do a double hit. I forget what they call it when they first do it in the beginning of November. One's going to be at 8 and one at 10. They're going to repeat it twice a day for, I think, the first week. But it's really going to be something that we should get everybody to watch, to remind them, we've been through this bad time before. We've seen really tough times, and of course we don't remember, but hopefully we've learned at least enough to remember when we fought over slavery. something called the Civil War. So we've had tough times. We can come through it, but we need to be reminded of what our founding fathers did, how they did it, why they did it, and how difficult it was to do it. But it was worth fighting for, because this is what we got from it.
On that constructive note, this is just the optimism we needed right now. So please join me in thanking our guests for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.